Hi everybody. Hi everybody. My name's Evan, and I'm your Monday host for The Den. Did you catch all the videos from last week? Because some of them were pretty awesome. Aaron, your family's adorable. I'm glad that they're close enough that you can see them regularly. That's awesome. Dan, it was a lot of fun co-hosting your video with you. You fucking dick. There's one other quick thing I want to mention before we get started, is that if you want to see The Den's videos showing up on your Facebook page all the time, apparently the way that Facebook pages is set up is you have to actually go and under the area where you like our page, you have to click on that, hold your mouse over it, watch the drop down box, and go and click on get notifications from our group. Otherwise, you're not going to be seeing the posts on your wall until they get a certain amount of traffic. So if you actually want to be seeing our videos showing up on your Facebook feed every week, then you need to make sure that you go and sign up for the notifications on the Den's Facebook page. You can get to that on facebook.com/menoftheden. Or you can just subscribe to our channel and leave me some comments. That's at youtube.com/menoftheden. Today's going to be kind of a heavy topic for me. We're going to be talking about our coming out stories. Putting this story out on the internet might hurt some people, but it's my story as true as I can remember it, and it's who I am as a person, so I'm going to share it. Especially after watching Will's video last week. Man, wow. To share something like that with everybody, that takes balls, dude. But thank you for sharing, because you doing that is kind of what's given me the courage to share my story today. So thank you. My coming out story happens in two separate events. I'm going to break it down into my high school and my home. I'll start off with high school. I spent the first 2 years being kind of a shithead. I was a bully. I was really confused about who I was, coming to terms with my sexuality, and I was really angry about hiding all of it. I started coming out to people when I was 16, and I was hardcore outed in grade 10. See, growing up in this generation, ignorance is out. People that are bigots are made fun of for being idiots. And it's a super awesome era to be gay, and it really is. But it also means that people no longer think they have to keep their mouths shut about it. The second girl I ever came out to, she told the entire school in less than half of a week. Strangely, that made me insanely popular. In a small town where the standard is a nuclear family with their 2.5 kids, their white picket fence, everybody knows the gay guy at school. At the time, I was friends with these 5 other guys. They're the ones that I gave a shout out to in my previous video. They're a bunch of rowdy, drunk, country and skater boys who loved getting in fights, being total shit disturbers, and calling people faggots. I don't know what I thought. I guess I figured that they hadn't heard anything or didn't really believe the rumors, but I was scared as fuck to come out to these guys. I thought they were gonna kick my ass at some shit like that. But eventually I figured they were gonna find out one way or another, so I worked up the balls to come out to them. I'm never gonna forget it. I was shaking. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I was praying to God that they wouldn't notice. They were all asking me what was wrong, what was going on, what the hell was happening. They immediately came and wrapped me in this huge hug. They were laughing at me and making fun of me for being so afraid. As soon as I said it, I realized what a paranoid view you have from the inside of the closet. These guys loved me regardless, and they always supported me and always looked out for me and stuck up for me no matter what happened. I'm never gonna forget the time that we were just hanging out on lunch period in school and this kid calls me a faggot. As I'm standing up to confront him about it, my friend Nigel comes flying out of nowhere and throws him up against the wall. Honestly though, those guys gave me the strength that I needed to be out and gay in high school. Chris, Nate, Nigel, Sean, Brandon, I can't thank you guys enough for what you did for me, and I love you motherfuckers to death. I actually miss hearing you guys call me balls to chin. Hopefully we'll get to kick it again soon. So all that stuff was taking place at high school. I grew into myself more and I started coming to terms with everything. I started dressing better. I grew in a chin strap. Things were looking up. In grade 12, I had started seeing this guy long distance. Yeah, he was a bit older than me. Okay, he was 10 years older than me, but that's how I do. He'd come out to visit. We'd hang out, spend all weekend together. I'd come up with some elaborate story for my mom and stepdad. I had already taken a train out once and spent the weekend out here, and we had a great time. So I wanted to come out here again and see him. In the process of me weaving yet another elaborate story for my parents, my mom caught me in a lie. She's saying, I know that something's up. I know there's something that you're not telling me, and I want to know what it is. Probably because I had such a track record of being a shit disturber, and she thought I was going to get in some sort of trouble. I just said to her, look, I really don't have enough time to talk to you about this in the 10 minutes that it's going to take us to get to the mall, so can we talk about this when I'm done work? Now let me clear up a couple things about my mom. She never gave me any reason to think that she wouldn't be okay with me being gay or me coming out. You automatically assume the worst is going to happen. I mean, you guys know how it is. But my mom had always been very cool, and she'd always been very outspoken on the issue that people should just be left alone to do what they want as long as they're not hurting anybody else. Now this is where things start to get a little melodramatic. Give me a break. I was 18 years old. I was terrified. When I went into work, my boss immediately saw that something was wrong. Everybody was extremely supportive and they let me take all the time that I needed to pull myself together. So I sat down in the back room and I wrote her a letter. My plan was to go out to the car, give her the letter, tell her to read it. I was gonna walk away and find some place to hang out for a little while, and then the letter said to call me whenever you were ready. I very nervously walked out to the car and went to go give her the letter. But when I did, my dad was there. Now, at this point, My parents had been split up for several years and we kind of drifted apart. Okay, we drifted apart a lot. Having been so terrified to come out to my mom alone, I totally wasn't ready to come out to my dad. So what did I do? I panicked. I walked up to the car and I tossed the letter into the open window and then I took off running. My dad gets out, he starts chasing after me. At this point I'm crying. I took off and found a place to hide, and actually I ended up spending the rest of the night sitting behind a Domino's pizza, wondering what the fuck I was gonna do. After sitting there for an hour or two, I decided it was time to stop being melodramatic and I headed over to my friend Taylor's place. At this point it's around 11:30, maybe getting on to midnight. My mom's been blowing up my phone the entire time. I'm still not ready to face her. After spending some time at Taylor's and her talking me off the ledge and telling me that things were gonna be just fine, I finally called my mom. She comes, picks me up at 2 a.m. She was worried about me, but she says we need to talk. So we go and we grab some Tim Hortons, as is the Canadian thing to do, and we sit in our car and we talk. I tell her everything. How I'm gay, how I was outed in school, the types of guys that I'm into, and the guy that I was seeing. I told her all about my boyfriend, told her about how I'd been out to see him and how I wanted to go and see him again, and that's how she caught me in the lie and that's what was going on. And she doesn't really have much to say. She asked me a couple questions about it, but nothing too in-depth, and then she just tells me that she needs some time to think about it. Now this was not the answer that I was expecting, mostly because it wasn't the reaction I was hoping for of, oh my god, Evan, it's okay, I don't know why you didn't think you could tell me. There was none of that. It was just, I have to think. After what was arguably the most stressful week of my life, she finally asked me out to dinner. So we go downtown to my favorite sushi place, and before the meal even gets there, I can't take it, I can't wait any longer, and I say, okay, so what's up? What's the verdict? Like, what do you need to tell me? She looks at me and she says, you have one phone call to call him and tell him that you're not going to see him anymore, you're not going to date him, you're not going to be in contact with him. You may choose this lifestyle, but not while living under mine and Michelle's roof. I got up and I walked out. I called my boyfriend, sobbing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared I called my friend and I went and stayed at his place, and I didn't go home for 2 days. I was a couple weeks away from graduating at this point, so I knew I had to stick around. I didn't really have any other option at the time. I couldn't leave home. So I finished out school, and my boyfriend and I continued to date in secret. That went on for the better part of a month, and then my mom busted me. When that happened, we started having these huge blowout arguments. I'm actually really not proud of some of the stuff I said. Screaming, yelling, throwing stuff, punching walls. Nobody else in my family had any idea what was going on. They thought I was losing my shit. Eventually, my stepdad just says he's had enough and he wants to know what's going on, so my mom fills him in. Now, my stepdad, he grew up in northern Quebec, comes from a devout French Baptist Catholic family. We were in the car not even 10 minutes and he starts going off on a lecture. He says, I can't pretend that this is normal. I can't pretend that this is just acceptable, that you're dating somebody who's a guy who's 10 years older than you. He says, I can't have that in my house. I try to plead my case, say that I have no control over it, beg them to at least meet this guy, at least give him a chance. It wasn't going to happen. So at the next red light, I hopped out, waited for the bus to show up. I guess the argument must have continued because 2 minutes later, my mom comes walking up behind me. My mom and I take a very tense bus ride home, and I tell her that things aren't going to change, that this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to love who I choose to. And then she just looks at me and tells me that she thinks it would be easier for everybody if I just left. She told me that my stepdad was going to be home and I should probably be gone before he got back. It took about 3 hours to pack up everything that I owned, and I moved it over to this place where all my friends had been staying. My boyfriend and I had been talking about moving in together, but nothing serious. We had no place, but he was amazing and he managed to pull something together. So after a week of staying with my friends, I moved away from my family and anything and anyone that I had ever known. I found myself needing to grow up really fast. I needed to find a job at 18. I needed to find a way to start supporting myself and start paying my share of the bills and the rent, the groceries, and figure out a way to get my ass through school. I remember having to call my dad and tell him everything that had happened over the phone. I'm never going to forget the sound of disappointment in his voice when I came out to him. I remember being angry and confused. I couldn't understand why they couldn't handle it, why they couldn't accept me. When your own family can't accept you for something, it kind of makes you feel like a freak. Most of all, I was upset about leaving my little sister. My mom never told her anything. She let my little sister think that I just up and left one day and never came back, never called, never came to visit. Slowly and steadily, I started to rebuild the relationship with my family. Started with texting or talking on the phone here and there every couple months or so. I was still very bitter. I was still really angry about everything that had happened. I don't really blame them for anything. It must have been kind of a shock. Being a chaser's parents can't be easy, can't be an easy thing to understand. Hell, I barely even fucking understand it myself. And it's been slow and steady progress, both with my mom and my dad. We talk more than we used to. Made a lot of progress in terms of understanding each other. They've both come to accept a lot about me. Now, I understand that that was extremely melodramatic. Now, the last thing that I want anybody to do is pity me, because I don't need it. Since then, I've come really, really far. I've made a lot of amazing friends around here who are as close as family can ever get, and I will not change or question who I am for anybody. I had to grow up, and I did. Everything that I've been through, everything that's happened to me, that's part of who I am. That's made me who I am today, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Do I wish things were different with my family and that I was closer with them and could go see them on Christmas? You're damn right. But if I had Doc Brown's DeLorean, would I go back in time and stop myself from doing anything that I had done previously? Fuck no. I may have gone through hell and back, but I made it out the other side a stronger person than I ever could have been without it. And it's because of that that I'm able to be who I am and not apologize to anybody for it. So let me tell you that if you are in any way struggling with the idea of coming out to your friends or your family, my advice is to leap without looking, because even if the worst fucking happens, you'll find a way to make it. And you'll always find people who will support you and people who will love you for who you are. Like me, for example. I will always love you and support you no matter what you do. So more power to you. Except you, Dan. Fuck you.